Hello, bookish friends. My name is Gail, and this is Nikki, and I am the fiction bookworm. So, today I'm really excited to talk to you about, first of all, to talk to you from a new filming location. I'm trying out this spot to see if I have a little better lighting, and I'm really excited about it. I have some really pretty flowers here for at least today. But what I'm hoping to talk to you about today is some suggested reading for October. Since October we have Halloween and we have, people want to read books that are a little spooky and maybe involve some witches and haunted places. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, some suggested reading. So I've recently read some books that I think are great picks for October, and I wanted to recommend them to you today. So with regard to books that are a little bit spooky and that have creepy houses or ghostly themes, I thought I'd start by recommending some books that are set in some spooky locations and maybe involve some ghosts. And I wanted to start with a book that I actually read last month and mentioned briefly in my wrap-up, and that is Ruth Ware's The Turn of the Key. And this novel is set in a house in Scotland that has a creepy background. So it was owned by a doctor who had a poison garden, and he used it to collect all of these poisonous plants, and his daughter is accidentally, or maybe on purpose, poisoned in this house. And so when the main couple in this novel buy this house, it's had already this history of several deaths taking place in the house. And so they completely redo it and they modernize it, and they have this camera system. It's like a whole house system where the whole house is wired for cameras and microphones, and the parents can be away and they can contact you in any room in the house, and you have to have an app on your phone to control the lights, and there's a sound system that goes through the whole house. So it's just this kind of weird, spooky atmosphere, and there's even the possibility that there's maybe a ghost as well in this location. And so it's really atmospheric. Even though I read it in September, it would be really a great atmospheric story to read in October. If you haven't read it yet, do get it and do read it. It's good. So another book that I wanted to recommend is called A Bridge Across the Ocean, and this is a book that is set in dual timelines. And one of the characters is a POV ghost. A point of view is a ghost that lives on the ship. And it's a story of a woman who has the ability to communicate with ghosts. This is sort of a runs in the family kind of trait. And she, there's also two POV characters who are from World War II. So the story is set on a ship that is taking these British, or not just British, but all of these war brides who are going to the United States after World War II, whose husbands, who met their husbands while they were fighting in Europe during the war. And so the woman who has this ability to communicate with the ghosts, she's always been afraid of this ability and has never wanted to use it. Until a friend comes to her and says his daughter is looking for the ghost of her mother who passed away, and she thinks that the ghost is on the ship. So she decides that she is going to try and communicate with ghosts. And it's a really good story, and I think it gives that little bit of spooky vibe that a lot of people are looking for in October. Another book that I want to recommend which is along the theme of witchcraft, is Tidelands by Philippa Gregory. And if you've read The Lady of the Rivers by Philippa Gregory, that book also has a bit of a witchcraft theme, in that the main character does actually practice some witchcraft. And that is, kind of an interesting read as well. But the Tidelands takes kind of the opposite theme. And Tidelands is set during the English Civil Wars, and it is the time when Cromwell and the Parliament was in charge of the country, and so it's a Puritan religion is now like the state religion instead of the Church of England, and there's a lot of suspicion that people have about witches who are now adherents of Puritanism, and so there's a woman that the story is about, and sort of her grandmother and mother and her have all been midwives and healers, and they know a lot about herbs, and people tend to think that they are actually witches. And so she spends most of the book trying to convince people, no, she's not a witch, she just has knowledge of herbs. And so witchcraft is a huge theme in this book, and you can maybe imagine what might happen in the 1600s when a woman is sometimes thought to be a witch. So it's a really interesting novel. It's long, but I really liked it. I thought it was a good book, and I hope that you will like it too. Okay. So another book that I'd like to recommend that is perfect for this time of the year, because it's actually set in September and October, is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So this is another book that I have mentioned here before, and I do recommend the whole series because you can't really get a full view of the whole world unless you read the whole trilogy. But what's cool about A Discovery of Witches is the book is set in September and October. So right now, there is a real-time read-along that is going on, and you could join it late and finish up this book by the end of the month. As you read along with everyone who's doing the real-time read. And so there's more information about that in the All Souls Trilogy official Facebook group, and you can actually find a guide to the real-time read-along both on Amazon.com, and I know it's on Kobo.com. It's like a free ebook download that has more information about how to do the real-time read-along. So Discovery of Witches series, of course, has to do with witchcraft because witches is in the title, but the world also includes vampires and demons. The main character is a witch, and there's also a main character who's a vampire in this book. But we learn a lot about both of the witches and the vampires in this particular book, as we have, again, a reluctant witch who has always tried to suppress her powers, but because of events that have happened to her, she starts to think, okay, maybe I should, maybe exercise some of my powers and try and find out what's going on and find out more information about Ashmole 782 and why this book came to her when no one else could find it. So it starts in a library with a missing book, and I love that about this particular series. It's a book that's later known as the Book of Life, and we learn kind of the conclusion about that in the third book in the series. So I highly recommend A Discovery of Witches. So another theme that I think is fun to read in October are Gothic novels. I grew up reading some of the Gothic novels of Victoria Holt and Phyllis A. Whitney. And so these are books that are usually set kind of like there's a young woman who's been estranged from her extended family, and perhaps the death of a parent, or something has happened that she has nowhere else to go, and so she seeks out this extended family, and they usually live on some kind of creepy estate, and is maybe haunted, or there's something evil going on there. There's something mysterious that she's trying to figure out and solve. And so I just read a book that's coming out on October 22nd that is called The House of Brides, and it's by a woman named Jane Cockram, and she is from Australia, but the novel is set in England. And so it's about this young woman whose mother is from England, from this estate, and has written a famous book called The House of Brides, which is about all of the women who have married into this family and lived on the estate, and how these women were very clever and all did something to really kind of help save the family and save the estate. And so that's why it's called The House of Brides, because it's the brides all the time who were saving the family. And so she herself goes because of circumstances in her life. She's just had this major, she was a social media influencer, and she's just had this major issue happen, and she can no longer do that job. She's been sued, and she deletes all of her social media stuff. And she's trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? When she gets a letter addressed to her mother, who passed away a long time ago, saying, can you please come and help us? The family needs you. And so she goes to the estate. They assume that she is one of the nanny candidates. They've been trying to hire a nanny for this young family. And the dad, Max, assumes that she's a nanny candidate, or maybe it's the mom. Anyway, someone assumes she's a nanny candidate, so they interview her and hire her, not knowing that she is actually Max's niece, and his sister's daughter, and cousin to the kids that she's going to be taking care of. And so she decides to hire on, and she goes and stays with them. And very quickly after she starts there, the mom, Daphne, disappears. And so she's not only trying to figure out why is her mom estranged from this family, what happened to kind of force them all apart, but also, what happened to Daphne? Where did she go? Why did she disappear? The family seems to be not terribly concerned that she's disappeared because she's done this before, but this happens like shortly before Christmas, and so the mom is gone over Christmas. And Miranda, the girl, is not convinced that this is what really happened. So it's a very gothic novel. She's trying to figure this out. She doesn't know who to trust. There's like this longtime family employee named Mrs. Minns. There's her mother's sister, Elizabeth, and her husband, Tom. And they own access to this island off the coast of the house, which is located like right on the coastline. Which is kind of mysterious, and so she doesn't know who she can trust, and she keeps wanting to go to the island, and then Elizabeth tells her to go to the island, but she doesn't know if it's safe. So it's just got all that creepy atmospheric stuff going on that make for a good October read. So that won't be out until October 22nd, so at the very end of the month. But I hope that you pick it up and read it, because it's the perfect kind of creepiness for October. So that's the books that I have to recommend for you right now that I've either read recently or, really enjoy. And I thought I'd talk to you about some of the ones that I'm hoping to read this month, to kind of give me that same kind of creepy feeling as I'm looking for something to read this month. So, first on my list is this book called The Serpent and the Dove. And this is a witchcraft story set in France about a witch who ends up leaving like her coven and ends up in a marriage with a witch hunter who doesn't know she's a witch. And so that's about all I really know about the book, but I'm really excited to read it. I feel like it's been getting some buzz. So I'm hoping I can get this done this month. Okay, so another book that I have on my shelves that I'm wanting to read this month is called Lost Among the Living by Simone St. James. I have not read this book, but I do regularly get books from the Once Upon a Book Club book box, and this was one of their picks before I started regularly subscribing, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. And it is about a woman who goes to this house called Witch Elm House, and a woman named Jo Manders, and she is the paid companion for a woman named Dottie. And so they go to this witch house, and there's rumors that there are ghosts in the house, and so she is at the same time learning more about her husband, who was killed in World War II, or no, I'm sorry, in World War I. And she's learning more about his past, which was not so great. So she's trying to figure out what's going on in this house and also what's going on with her husband at the same time. So I think it sounds like it's the right kind of sort of haunted, gothic kind of story for October. And then finally, I'm hoping to read a book called In the Woods by Tana French, which is the first book in the Dublin Murder Squad series, which is going to be a TV show, I think on Starz, starting in November maybe. And so it is about this, it's kind of like these interconnected stories. The series itself is a group of interconnected stories kind of featuring different people in this Dublin police squad. This particular story is about a detective named Rob Ryan, and they discover a cold case from 1984 that they're investigating. So I'm hoping to read that book just kind of in preparation to watch the TV show, which I think looks pretty good. And it's, you know, it's a murder mystery, which is always great in October because of some of the suspense and creep factor that come along with a murder mystery. So I also have a bunch of other books that I'm planning on reading, but that are maybe not quite October themed. But I hope that you will make some suggestions if you have any suggestions for me of books that I should be picking up that I haven't heard about or thought about. I'd love to hear about them. And let me know what you're reading for October to celebrate Halloween. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you have some great books this month, and I will see you again to talk more about books soon. Thanks. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. See you next time.